Level up with the new AAA Commanders MVP membership. Get all the benefits of AAA, plus exclusive experiences, discounts, and tickets. Already a AAA member? Upgrade for free or join today at AAA.com/Commanders. Hey, hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Keim Report, wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Empire Media, AMPIRE. Always much appreciated when you tune in. And don't forget, you can read my stuff on ESPN.com. And always, thank you for joining the live stream. As you can see, I'm joined by Bram Weinstein, the voice of the Commanders. And Bram, is the sky falling?
No. They're 2-2, John, and it's still September. So no, the sky isn't falling. I think I would just say this about the Atlanta game, and we can go through it because I watched it, rewatched it. I have some different feelings about it, now that I got to rewatch it. This happens every time. It's never as good as it was, and it's never as bad as it was. Right. So, I have some thoughts about a number of different things, but I'll just say this, Washington was going on the road against a desperate team that I think we all think is going to be pretty good this year and might have a really good offense. And, I kind of went in going, we're the beat up team. What I'm hanging, my hope on is that everything's just kind of a mess down there because we caught them at this weird time. But I never want to play teams that are red hot or totally embarrassed. I really don't like playing teams like that. And so, I kind of went in hoping we could steal it. That's what I was hoping would happen. The surprising part of this year to me is the way they've won and the way they've lost have been the surprising parts to me. Not necessarily that they won the games they won or lost the games they lost. It's the way that they've lost or won the games that has surprised me.
Yeah. And listen, there are some real concerns coming out of not just this game, but in both those losses, and even against the Raiders and the Giants, they'd give up those explosive plays. That's the lingering concern here for me. The loss in and of itself, they put up 27 with a banged up offense. It's funny because I see people complaining about Kingsbury. I'm like, are you kidding me?
You got to be
48 points. They put up 48 points the last 2 weeks with their backup quarterback. And tell me who are all these explosive threats on offense right now. So, the loss in and of itself, I wouldn't be deeply concerned if we didn't see those defensive issues. And, just what does that mean for the rest of the season? But like you said, this was a tough game to me to play Atlanta. Now I thought could they win? Of course, they certainly could have won. And as poorly as they played, if you get one stop, Bram, in the fourth quarter, you got a chance to tie the game. But that offense, watching Michael Penix the first 3 weeks, and then I watched him the fourth game against the Panthers. I'm like, that doesn't look like the same guy. And it was so out of whack. And I talked to somebody, you talk to people down there, it's that was just, they kind of shook their heads. It was so uncharacteristic of them. They they're going to bounce back. And that's why those first 2 drives by the Falcons that put them behind, I thought it's going to be very difficult to win because of that. But this is a weird league. Look at the Packers. These guys lost to the Packers. You're thinking, wow, the Packers, that's a really good team. They've lost to the Browns and then they tie the Cowboys, in the next couple of weeks. And then, you look at just what else goes on in this league. It's outside of one team right now, which is the Eagles, everybody else up and down, you know what I mean? And it's so, could they go out there and win Sunday? Of course. It would not shock me at all.
No, it wouldn't shock me. I mean, look at the Chargers. They were 3-0 and lost in Jackson Dart's debut. And nobody had them losing, right? So it is a weird league. The first month always shakes things out. They are 2-2. My biggest surprise is how they lost this game. Not that they lost it, but how they lost it.
Right.
And I don't want to hear a thing about Kingsbury the last couple of weeks. That guy's earned his money. Almost 70 points in 2 weeks with a backup quarterback, changes on the offensive line, missing explosive players left and right. Best blocking tight end is out. Number 1 running back is out. Give me a break. I don't even want to hear it with them. I think he's done an outstanding job. I thought Mariota did an outstanding job. I thought Josh Connerly had one of his best games, actually, this past week. So there were bright spots. And the special teams the last couple of weeks, I don't want to hear it about them. They've had explosive play after explosive play. They're the number 1 kick return team. Matt Gay finally got it he's kicking them straight now suddenly. So
it's not an issue anymore.
No, suddenly, and like, so they've been really good on kick coverage. They've been really good on kick. So 2 phases of it are going pretty well. And that's what I'm excited about, Jaden hopefully coming back, what that looks like. This week is about the defense. And like, that's the whole thing this week. And this is where I was surprised here. Like, Atlanta comes in, listen, I don't know what was going on with them for a couple of weeks, but their offense was off. But they have elite talent. Like, they have, to me, the best running back in the NFL, the guy who's probably going to lead the league in yardage from scrimmage if he stays healthy. That tight end, everyone, fantasy managers will freak out because every year someone picks him and goes, when is he going to break out? He's an elite athlete. So eventually something might unlock him. And Drake London's a very good for, a number 1 wide receiver. He's very good. So, and they have a Pro Bowl right guard. They got a Pro Bowl left tackle. Like, that offense should be way, way, way better than it was. It doesn't change the fact that I'm disappointed about certain things about what happened with the defense over the weekend. And we could talk about that stuff because that's why they lost. They didn't lose because of the offense. They didn't lose because of special teams. They lost because the defense got gashed. And we can talk about that.
Yes. And I think we have to talk about that because there's not a whole lot else. Well, there are other things to talk about, but I think have to stay there because the question is, what does this mean for the rest of the season? Can they fix that? Like, what's the confidence level they can get fixed?
And I'll tell you a lot of reasons why, but go ahead, please.
Well, yeah. It's going to be difficult, and it's not as simple as change the scheme. And when people complain about the scheme, I'm like, okay, what is your issue with the scheme? Because, this is a scheme that a lot of people run. So what's the issue with the scheme? I don't know. Is it, then I hear they're too old and I hear they're, the talent isn't there or something. And so like, well, or this guy's not very good and this guy. So what is it? And so that the problem is maybe it's all of that. And maybe it is like, here's the thing too. Like if you're the defensive coordinator and Joe Witt, I mean, this is your responsibility, period. This is what you're getting paid for, is to coordinate this defense. But there are a lot of things that go into that. And so I don't know. That's why I say, like, it's not as simple as one change here or there. And over the last couple of weeks, Bram, they played less man coverage in the past when, they haven't played as much man. They haven't blitzed as much. They're trying to get more guys in coverage. So it hasn't worked as far as that. And the other, if you can't make the quarterbacks feel uncomfortable consistently, it's going to be tough. And I think that's why you have a chance this week, because those tackles for the Chargers are out and the guys coming in are not that good. So, I don't know, Bram. Like I wish I had some really good answers for that defense, but I think like the problem is like sometimes it's guy gets beat. So you see Marshawn Lattimore get beat on a double move. All right. That's player, right? Then you see some other times like there's motion and you see Jeremy Reeves gesturing to Trey Amos and they both cover the same guy. Like there's communication there, but somehow the lines were crossed, right? So like, how do you solve all of that?
Yeah. I'll say a few things about the defense of just in rewatching and what I kind of felt like. One, don't underrate the poor tackling in this game.
Yeah.
That's on both touchdown runs. Von Miller had Algier in the backfield. He got away and then ran over, I can't remember who, to get into the end zone once he got to the 3, on the Bijan touchdown run, everybody's punching at the ball. Nobody's trying to tackle him. And Bijan's very tough tackle in general, but like that was a problem the other day. And I would ask this question about this particular game plan, because I'm just curious. To your point about them not bringing a lot of pressure, they blitzed here and there, but they really went with a 4-man rush in general. Right. So I have 2 questions about that I would want, because in the end, like Atlanta, everybody had a big day. When everybody has a big day, they have figured you out. And so
they had the answer.
Everybody, like, if Bijan Robinson has some enormous day, but they shut down London and they shut down Pitts, and they just had this huge day from maybe the best running back in the NFL, you can live with that. But when everybody has theirs, Penix has a career day, Bijan has a career day, London's averaging 53 yards a game, he gets 110 and a touchdown. Pitts is averaging 40 yards a game, he's well over that and a touchdown. Something is completely off. So this is what I would ask in rewatching it, because I'm curious, because they did not bring as much pressure as I kind of expected. So I have 2 questions about that. One, did they just think they could win with 4? Fine. Okay. If that's what you think you can do, then you do that. Or did they think that they didn't need to pressure him because they believed they could disguise well enough on the back end to induce Penix, who wasn't seeing it very well the week before, into making mistakes? And I'd have to ask the coaches which one it was, or a combination of both, because neither worked out. If their whole thing was, we have to win with 4 up front, well, that didn't happen. And if the game plan was, we don't think we need to do it because we would rather just change looks on the back end and have more bodies out there because we think we can induce mistakes by him, that unfortunately didn't work out either. So that's where I would be, in just trying to figure out what happened here was, what was their strategy, and what kind of went wrong. And they're not going to answer that question, but that's where I was watching it, that I was like, at some point, I think you need to pressure him a little bit more. And then at other points, I'm like, well, they did induce the one huge mistake to Sandra still, but did they think they were going to get more of that? I don't know. That's what I would want to know about this one.
Well, and there's a couple things. One, Frankie Louvu hasn't been rushing it. So this was the second week in a row they didn't send a lot of extra pressure, like an extra man, 5-man rushes, second week in a row. So I wonder, and this is a wonder because I don't know for sure, but I wonder if part of that is, okay, you see Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, and even Mooney. Like, are you concerned with that back end holding up and trying to maybe play more? And it wasn't all zone, but playing maybe a little bit more of that. And so you're going to need guys more drop, and you want to, and it could be some of what you said, because the one thing that, with Penix was the whole thing was, make him hold the ball and move him, get him off that spot. Get him off his spot. And because that's what the Panthers did well, and other teams have done that pretty well against him. So that could be possible too. But I think it's noticeable that if you're playing less man and you want to be more of a press man team, by the way, and somebody referred here on the board, to their Charmin coverage, they're playing press at times for sure. This isn't just always 10 yards off. That is not the case at all. So, and when you go back and watch it, it's not the case at all. They play a mix of that, but they're not playing it well enough. And there are definitely times where you just can't go up in your face and press. They don't have those corners to do that. Very few teams just get up in your face every play and press. But having said that, so Bram, I wonder too, are you concerned about that? But here's the other problem. Now you're dropping a guy into coverage in Frankie Louvu, who's much better going forward.
100%.
And so that to me is where, if you want to start, can you do more? And they did some simulated pressure where they would drop Dorrance Armstrong and Jacob Martin would drop. So a couple of times when they dropped Armstrong, he ended up being a guy that not by design, but in the target area because the pressure doesn't get there. So you need to get somehow Frankie Louvu going forward and creating big plays. Because that's one thing, if you're not going to be good, somehow find a way to create more plays, create some chaos with it. And,
I actually thought this was Louvu's best game, by the way.
I thought he was really good. This was
his best. I mean, it gets overshadowed because, they gave up 34 points and so many long drives and all the conversions and the big plays and all that stuff. But it was his best game. And Joe Witt had kind of talked about this first couple of weeks when his numbers just were not there. He was just not around the ball very much. And he had described it to us as people are treating him differently. Well, that's now on the coaching staff to figure out a way to make him an impact player, because the reality to me is he is the biggest potential impact player on their defense on a down-to-down basis. And they haven't figured out how to utilize him the way they were utilizing him last year. If they can unlock some ways, and I agree with you, moving forward more than out in coverage, that I think he's the guy who, when I looked at okay, this is what their defensive line looks like. This is clearly adding up to, we can find ways to rush Louvu. My thought going into the season was he'll probably end up leading the team in sacks. That he'll probably be the person. That hasn't happened yet. His first sack happened a week ago. First couple of weeks, we barely called his name. So there's got to be a way to do that. And then there's the other thing that I think really stood out here, and it's worth reminding again who the matchup was. This team clearly has coverage issues with high-functioning running backs out of the backfield, and they have issues covering really good tight ends. Now, the good news about this week is actually the Chargers are throwing the ball more to Hampton the last couple of weeks than they have, but that's not something maybe we'll see more of it this week because of what we saw, last week and the last couple of weeks. they also don't have a Tucker Kraft or Kyle Pitts on this team.
Right,
so I think the matchup is going to be a little bit different this weekend with them. But therein lies, to me, mismatches. And when I say mismatch with Atlanta, again, like, I don't want to undersell how good Bijan Robinson is. He's a mismatch for everybody, like literally everybody. Like on the swing pass that was the huge play, I want to give them, like, I'm not mad about that. Like, I want to give them credit. Like, that was really well schemed. It was really well designed. It got Bobby stuck in traffic. It hits Bijan in stride. It was a perfect pass in stride. The thing that I'm upset about actually is not that play, because that was just a well executed play. You can't be mad about that. What I'm upset about is they scored a touchdown on the next play. They scored a touchdown on the next play.
Right.
Like, that's where, like, and I think Quinn would agree with that, because me and him are cut from the same cloth about, like, energy, momentum. Jeremy Reeves sprinted 50 yards down the field to save what should have been a touchdown, and he wasn't rewarded for it. That's the part that actually got me. It's not that they, like, watch that play again. Nobody's going to stop that. It was perfectly executed. There's no linebacker that's going to stop that. And the pass was so perfect that there's no way of stopping it. So I'm not upset about a play like that. Like, when a team with elite players makes an elite play, I don't get upset about things like that. It's some of the other stuff we can talk about that obviously need to be fixed. Can they figure out the communication on the back end? There's a lot of that's still going on, and they'll be the first to admit it to you that is still going on. That has to be rectified, obviously.
That does. And by the way, I want to go back to one thing you were talking about earlier about the tackling. So you brought up the Von Miller play, and there were a couple of those, like, in the backfield. My problem with that was there's nobody else near him. And, like, when you're having a really good defense, if a guy misses, there are 3 or 4 other guys there to clean up. There were 2 guys, the next 2 guys were downfield already being blocked. Everybody else is taken away by the action of the play. And it was just Von Miller one-on-one in the backfield. You make him miss, and now you got 25 yards. So, like, that was my issue with that play too. And that happened a few times where guy misses them. And, like Frankie Louisville one time misses in the backfield, grabs a shoe. And, I think it should have been a 4 or 5 yard loss. Still got like 3 yards, but at least there was more of a glut of defenders there. When you're not having that, like, that's a problem. Guys are getting blocked. And so, I think that's wrong. Somebody else, Juan wants to know about where's Jordan McGee, because we're talking about linebackers and coverage. He's a guy that they are high on, and they'd still say, to my knowledge is they still like him. Like, there's no reason not to. Now, I will say, like, he was always said to be, like, when they go to the 3 linebacker packages, he's coming in. That's very game specific. He played 5 snaps against the Raiders. I went back and watched all 5 of them, because I too am curious about Jordan McGee. I like what I think he can do. He made like good plays. He did a good job on those 5 plays. And then, that's it. Again, very game specific for him. So I don't think it's a matter of him not, like, being in favor. But how do you get him snaps? Because if you're going to get him snaps, you're taking Wagner or Louisville off the field. And then what those guys, like, despite what we're seeing in covers, like, I get that. Like, and I would say this: opposing teams know they can attack the linebackers in coverage. That's not a secret. So, but, like, when do you put him in for somebody, and then for who? So that's the hard part with him. So it is very game specific with him. So it may not be the answer you want to hear, but it is the answer. Life gets chaotic during the season, especially when I'm on the road. I often feel I just don't have time or energy to make a big breakfast. So I grab my Huel Black Edition, mix it up here, folks, kickstart my day. I feel satiated and ready to go. Life is busy for everyone, whether you're back to school or just busy with work. Time is a valuable commodity, and that's where Huel can help. Spelled Huel, their Black Edition powder is a complete meal, so you feel full, focused, and ready for your day. And now Huel just dropped a first-of-its-kind Super Greens drink in a can. It's called the Huel Daily Greens Ready to Drink. Forget powders, forget pills. This is your daily green, sparkling, refreshing, and ready whenever you are. And it comes in a variety of flavors. Together, Huel makes healthy eating simple. Try both today with 15% off your purchase for new customers with my exclusive code KEIM, K-E-I-M, at Huel.com/Keim, Huel.com/Keim. Use my code and fill out the post-checkout survey to help support the show. Commanders fans, this is for you. Level up with the brand new AAA Commanders MVP membership. You'll receive all the benefits of AAA, such as 24/7 roadside assistance, plus chances to win game tickets, access to exclusive team events and experiences, along with 15% off Commanders gear at the online pro shop. Already a AAA member? Add the Commanders MVP membership for free. Head to AAA.com/Commanders to upgrade or join the squad and put your fandom in drive.
Sure. I mean, listen, I think this particular game was jarring, but there was parts of it where I watched, and I want to go back to what I said earlier, which is I really would like to understand just strategically how they were thinking about it, because clearly the Falcons beat them, and did it across the board. And so I the part of them not bringing more pressure as the game was wearing on. They did it sometimes, which is not a lot. That surprised me with how in rhythm their offense actually was. But that said, again, look, Bijan's going to make a lot of people look silly this year, a lot of people. And Kyle Pitts, if they actually unlock him, is uncoverable because of the athlete that he is. You're going to throw a linebacker on him? Good luck with that. So I know a lot of people were getting on Bobby, and I'm like, let me tell you something. Name the middle linebacker who has a good matchup with Bijan Robinson. They don't. And when they scheme up something that gives him space, forget about it. He's tough enough to handle when he's right in front of you.
My problem was that I thought that against the run, he was getting blocked a lot. And that was that was where part of that stuff was going on to me.
The interesting part was, again, they held Atlanta. I know it doesn't seem this way, but they held Atlanta under 4 yards a carry. So there's a lot of things that occurred here that don't seem you don't remember it this way. They didn't pop off 20-yard runs. That's not what was happening. And the run defense was actually pretty good and should have been better. It was bad tackling early in the game where Bijan had a number of, and that's why he's special, 5-6 yard runs that really could have been 2-3 yard runs. The Algier touchdown could have been a tackle for a loss. The Bijan touchdown, he bounced off 4 people who were just punching at the ball. There was some real bad tackling that occurred. It all kind of rolled downhill on them in a way that is jarring, obviously. I think largely when you just look at the metrics, where they're ranked, one takeaway, that's not good enough for a month. That's not good enough. The amount of yards, 400 plus yards in the 2 road games, it's not going to cut it, obviously. So I'm not trying to paper over issues here, but we take this game to game. And to me, when I rewatched it, it felt more like I'm just not certain how they thought they were going to win, but they did, because that's what they implemented there. I'd love to hear, post how maybe Joe Witt will, he always addresses the last game. So maybe he will address it a little bit. He'll address it. And then he likes to, but he does. He always does. Yeah, I will be very interested to hear just how they were thinking about that game and what went wrong. And then we just move on to what is going to be a very, very, very different team. Omarion Hampton might be Bijan Robinson one day. He's not right now. Their tight end is not an athlete like Kyle Pitts. Their danger is Herbert downfield passing game with stud wide receivers. So let's see how we handle that this week.
Well, this is where the pressure has to show up, because it's not just the tackles. Now the Giants have a terrific, their pass rush is only going to get better because of Abdul Carter. So when you're watching them, it's not the same thing as what you're going to watch here. But I think the interior guys, Payne and Allen, are going to have to feast. And I do think listen, Dorrance Armstrong, Von Miller, those guys are good enough to do damage against these tackles. The question is, can you force Herbert into some mistakes? When he's pressured, he's been pressured a lot the last 2 weeks. He's 9 for 30 something so you've got to get to him. But
his completion percentage the last couple of weeks is 50 something percent. Yeah, so I watched a lot of them for the Raiders game a few weeks ago as we were getting set to play the Raiders. So I know that game and I remember that one, but I haven't seen the last couple of weeks. I'm going to watch later this week, but I will be very interested to see how did they get his completion percentage like that? Because I believe he's an elite quarterback. So that's rare.
Right. And so Kevin wants to know about, speaking of, missing players, whatever, about Jerzon Newton and Johnny, right? And excited as we are about Kinlaw and Payne, Newton's name has been absent. Yeah, he hasn't made the big plays. Now, I will say, there are times where you see him. Like I thought there were a couple plays last week where he was very active, but you're not seeing the big plays. And it's funny, Bram, because and somebody else brought this up when I did the club members chat the other day before the game. If you're a club member, 3 hours before the game, do the chat, really good. But somebody brought up the point, like, the first draft, you're taking guys who you think are going to become your identity. And then after the first year, you understand more about what your identity is and what you want it to be. And they did go bigger on the D line this offseason. Newton is a smaller guy, but I still think he's got traits that I still think can translate into better play. But you got to see it, right? So I don't, but yes, he has not made the big plays for sure. And somebody else wants to know about like Jordan McGee. How do you know if he's good if he doesn't play? Because they're in practice with him, because they're in training camp with him, because they're in meetings with him. They know what he knows. You're right, though. Until you get on the field, all you know is I like this, this, and this. Now you've got to see it here. So you're right, but you're not going to sit Frankie Louvu or Wagner right now to play him to see. That's not, you can see a defensive players, especially, you can measure that their stuff on special teams. Like how passionate are they? What are they doing on special teams? How physical are they there? You can see the speed, et cetera. So there are ways you can see it, but until they're on the field, you're right. You're not going to fully know how good, what they can do. It's just the hope for them is that no, they're not moving Newton to the end. Anyways, there you go, Bram. So anyway, I just wanted to just kind of answer some of those. And the other thing is funny too, because the other topic, Bram, has been the age of this roster and the roster overall. And going into this year, and I said this a few times, I've always felt like they needed another good offseason to get to where they really want to be. Where you go into the year feeling really good about the overall roster. And they're still, to me, in that transition period where you're trying to build with draft picks and build with Jaden, but also knowing you've got to fill out the roster and you want to take advantage. This isn't about a win now scenario, but you should try to win every year when you have a quarterback like Jaden Daniels and when he's on a rookie contract. So you get caught with having to fill out the roster. But I felt like they needed a little bit more. But the Disco on my guy Disco on Twitter was want to know about why are coaches so stubborn to play young players, but they are playing a lot of young players. Almost every draft pick here, Bram, is playing. And so
who's not playing? Who
the only ones not playing would be Jordan McGee's not getting a lot, but he's helping.
I guess, but the middle linebacker on this team's a Hall of Famer.
Right.
I don't,
that's what I'm saying. Right. So hold on. So Keim Medrano, when you watch him in training camp, did I think he's ready to play? I didn't think that. I think he's going to have to learn. We talk about the tackling. That was a question about him in camp and in the preseason. So there aren't a lot of guys who aren't playing, but I think he's talking in general. But if you're a rookie,
who? Jalen Lane, Luke McCaffrey, Ben Sinnott, Colson Yankoff, Josh Connerly, Bill Krosky-Merritt, they're Amos, they're all playing. What are you talking about?
Right. And that's why I said who's the guy? But his point too is coaches in general. Well, yeah, until a rookie shows, there are ways you have to get on the field. Especially if you're not a high pick, you've got to prove in the classroom, you've got to prove in the practice field to get those chances to get out there. So I don't know that it's being stubborn. I think it's you've got to see. And sometimes if you're not seeing it, maybe you drafted the wrong guy. So anyways.
I don't know which young players he's referring to. They're all,
and I know and so here's the other thing. I know I get a lot of questions about Bill, and just why isn't he getting more? Well, part of it is there's a couple things. One, and Kingsbury said it a couple weeks ago, is the protection is a major issue for a running back. Now he's done in limited duty. Seems to be okay. But the other thing is, Bram, he's now played 6 NFL games, 2 preseason and 4 regular season. We're not talking about the Heisman Trophy winner coming in, but the other part is, after 3 of those games, he's had to miss practice time the next week. So, maybe you have to build up that resistance to the physical aspect of the NFL. You know what I mean? You can't just put him out there and get 20 carries. Here's the other thing.
I was worried about that because he didn't play last year too. I thought that because, I was worried about that this is a tough enough league for rookies coming off of a normal college football season. He hasn't had the punishment of his last college football season. I was worried about that too. And real quick, and I'll let you finish your thought, but I just want to say this. Their running game is averaging 5.9 yards per carry. Yes. That's number 2 in the NFL. That's number 2. You'd be surprised who number 1 is. It's Buffalo, but it's number 2. Only Baltimore has more 10+ yard rushes, and they have Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. Like what? What are we talking about here? Like,
right. Well, Bram,
clearly the running game is working. Like, what are we talking about here?
But they've scored 48 points the last 2 weeks. It's not the offense. You know what I mean?
So they've scored 68 points the last 2 weeks.
What did I say? 48?
68. Yeah.
My math isn't too good right now. But yes, and that's exactly the point. And, I think here's the other thing. Chris Rodriguez has had some really good runs too. Like, the run game seems to be okay. So I'm not really worried about that. And here's the other thing. Like, I like Krasky to run as violently as he can. If he did that 15 times at his size, he's going to feel like crap for a couple weeks. You know what I mean? So like you need to, build that up a little bit, but also Rodriguez has been effective too. So like they're in a good spot with that. You don't need to have one guy you need a good run game, and that will incorporate, when Jaden Daniels comes back, his scrambling will be part of that too. Deebo Samuel is part of that too. So, and again,
it's not broken. There's plenty of things to talk about that we got to worry about. Like their run game is number 2 in the NFL.
Run game is
what are you talking about?
So, Commanders fans, this is for you. Level up with the brand new AAA Commanders MVP membership. You'll receive all the benefits of AAA, such as 24/7 roadside assistance, plus chances to win game tickets, access to exclusive team events and experiences, along with 15% off Commanders gear at the online pro shop. Already a AAA member? Add the Commanders MVP membership for free. Head to AAA.com/Commanders to upgrade or join the squad and put your fandom in drive.
And then now Blaine wants to know about Preston Smith. So where's Preston Smith? Well, Preston Smith, first of all, I think he's going to have to start playing more because you just lost another guy at defensive end in Javonte Jean-Baptiste. The other part of it too is he wasn't in anybody's camp. So it's going to be hard for them. Like typically with this group, they're going to bring a guy in for a couple weeks, let him get back into quote unquote football shape, and then get him out there. And that's why even with Sam Cosmi is eligible to come off the PUP list now. I wouldn't shock me if they open the window on Wednesday, right? But he's going to have 21 days. I would think that they're going to give him a good week and a half or so to get to see where he's really at in pads, get that stuff back going again, because that stuff. So I think with Preston Smith, that's part of it. But the other part is, they haven't had to use him. And now I think they will, because you have no choice.
Well, they don't have much of a choice. They've lost 2 DNs here the last couple of weeks, unfortunately. So hopefully he's up to speed. Hopefully he can give them a package. They're typically not asking a ton of reps out of the ends, actually, with the exception of Armstrong. They've been rotating people around. And hopefully he can give them whatever they need between him, Von Miller, Jacob Martin. Maybe they can kind of fit that role. I will go back to, I still feel like the playmaker on this defense to me is Luvu. And if they can figure out a way to get him in position to make more plays, then I think we're going to see a better outcome just in general. And not unlike with Terry on offense, he's kind of like an emotional centerpiece of the team. When he makes plays, you just kind of feel it. When Terry makes plays, you just kind of feel it. And, I buy into, I subscribe to that with Quinn too, that it's momentum. Like, this is why I was so bothered by not the Bijan pass it, catch and run. The play after is a touchdown after Reeves did what he did to stop a touchdown. That's what really got me on that.
Yeah. It's funny because I have a feeling last year's group may have gotten that, you know what I mean? Because it's just, there was something different. But so I also want to address this too. Is Mikey better outside and throw Noah I back in the slot? I don't think that's your best bet. And, I think Samersteel is a terrific competitor. He hasn't been perfect this year either. I don't know why, people just seem to, I don't know if people have ignored that at times. I thought last week he was better. I know there were a couple plays he gave up, but overall I thought he was better. But I don't think that's the answer. Like when they was outside, he definitely had some issues. Now he made some good plays. He competed his ass off and all that. He's still better inside. And I don't, and you're not going to bench. I don't, somebody wants to bench Lattimore. Like for who? Like what's the alternative there? Antonio Hamilton? That's, now I think what it is with them, I understand the Lattimore stuff. Like they traded for him. He hasn't produced, hasn't played what you want. But maybe the expectations have to go way down. than they were. So, and that's a hard one, folks. Like that's something that you're going to have to solve in the offseason. That's the bottom line is that
yeah, we'll give more time to that. I don't think the answer is moving Mikey outside, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, mine too. And you know who else's opinion it is right now? It's the coach's opinion. So like that, then that's the one that matters. So anyways, Bram, I got nothing else. You got anything else?
I do want to give you my one stat that I wrote down today as I'm getting ready for the game that I actually can't believe, considering what last year was. There have been 0 lead changes in any of their games. 0
really?
In 4 games. Not a single lead change. That's unusual. And I have a feeling now that I said it, that will change this weekend.
That is really weird.
It is weird.
Yeah. And here's, my last thing is, as bad as people feel right now, it takes one game in this league for people to start feeling good again. Because, if you can go out to LA, and I think we know, like, there are going to be a lot of Washington fans out there because that is not exactly a Chargers.
Atlanta lost 30-0 the week before they played us to a team that's 1-3. Like, guess what? Things can change real fast.
Yeah, no, and that's the NFL. So anyways, folks, I appreciate you tuning in. I'll be back on Wednesday night, Thursday morning with another episode. Thanks for tuning in, and I will talk to you next time. Thanks, Bram.